Sweet. We can get started with our program. So this is is Unaired. We're hosting it because we wanted to give people on the show who didn't get a lot of airtime a chance to share more of their story, tell us what's true about the show, and also give us a little insight on what goes into it. So tonight, Kaila and I will interview our panelists, and then we'll open it up to the audience to ask questions.
Yeah, and I want to let you know there is one change. One of our panelists, Brittany Dodson, did have to drop out today, but no worries. We secured someone else from this season to talk with you today. So with that, I want to welcome out our panelists. Please welcome Love is Blind Season 8 cast members, Vanessa Boreland, Hugo Orieny, and Casandra Barron.
Want to start with introductions. Can you share where you're from, and then how would you rate your experience on Love is Blind?
Okay, I'll start. Hi, I'm Vanessa. I am from Apple Valley, Minnesota. I live in South Minneapolis right now. I would say like 8, 9 out of 10. I had a really good time. It was a super cool experience. Definitely difficult at times, but for the most part, I'm so glad I did it. I met some of my best friends there, and just a lot of really cool experiences have come from it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Hugo. I'm from Maple Grove, Minnesota, and then currently I'm living in downtown Minneapolis, right across the U.S. Bank. Go Vikes. My experience was a 10 out of 10, right? Something I've never done before, something that is new to me. So definitely changed my perspective on dating, and I enjoyed every time or every moment.
Hi, I am Casandra, and I am from Northeast Minneapolis, born and raised. And I would rate my experience, honestly, a 10 as well. I think from everyone I've met, it made my experience so worth it, and I would do it 10 times over. Yeah.
And how did each of you decide to be on the show?
Well, it was just kind of one of those things on a whim where they did reach out via DMs, and then I started to really kind of contemplate, like, is it worth it? Is it something that I'm, comfortable with? So eventually my sister kind of nudged me on. I know that's kind of been the theme of the whole. I know that's been the thing. So unlike, some other cast members, she's definitely been a great support system for me. So she encouraged me, and I took the chance. Yeah.
I know a lot of us maybe are familiar with my mother, who was really adamant I needed to do this. But similar situation, I was also recruited through Instagram to apply for the show, and I did. And every next step that happened in the application process, I was just like, there's no way. Like, there's no way this is real. Like, I'm not getting on the show. I'm not going. And each thing would keep happening. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then you get the call and they're like, okay, you're going to LA. And you're like, this is crazy. This is insane.
Yeah, I would say similar. I was recruited from Instagram, and I really thought it was spam. I was like, oh, they're totally trying to get me right now. And I just kept going through the interview process, and then all of a sudden I was in LA with these wonderful people. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you all had the DM situation.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say, your accounts were public then?
Yeah.
Okay, so public Instagram account is key.
Yeah. Public Instagram.
So Vanessa, I talked to you first before the show was released, and you had shared a bit about like your excitement, and then I also talked to your mom, who spilled a lot of information. So yeah, could you share more about what your time in the pods was like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much to say, and it's like crazy to think that all this happened over a year ago, and it's all just like coming back up now. So there's so many things that you like kind of forget about, and you're like, oh yeah, that happened. But I just think, I had a really great experience during the pod dating. Like, I actually made a really strong connection while I was there, which is why, if you've seen the show, a lot of the time, like, I'm in the lounge just like in the background, but we didn't really see a lot of me because I was in a relationship with somebody up until the engagement point, and we decided not to get engaged. But yeah, so I think like there was just a lot of storylines that weren't shown. But during that time, like I was still like I had a great connection. Like I was having fun. I was having fun with the girls. Like there was a lot of stuff in the lounge and relationships between all the girls that like we didn't really get to see a lot of. And I just think there was a ton of like girl power this season, and everybody was like just riding so hard for each other. Like we saw that with Molly and Lauren at Buck Hill and her being like a real girl's girl. And I can say for myself and for Casandra, Molly is one of our closest friends, and like she is truly that person in real life. So there was a lot of that happening in the lounge, and it would have been really nice to see that kind of just like friendship between the girls.
Absolutely.
And do you want to share who it was who you had this connection with?
Sure. I had a really strong connection with Adam, who we did not see at all. Maybe in the background 1 or 2 times. But so him and I that was our strongest, or my strongest connection. I did have a decent connection with Hugo. Ultimately not my strongest, but we did date a few times.
Yeah, what was it about Adam that you liked, and were there kind of any like notable dates or moments that you had expected would show up on air?
One thing I liked a lot about him is that we really did have very similar viewpoints when it came to important social matters, which we got a lot of discussion about this season, and a lot of, the guys were just not on the same page. So I did think it was kind of unfortunate because he was on the other side of that, and we didn't get to see any of that at all, or any of that representation for the men on the season. So I think that's one thing that really like got that connection for us, because that's like really important to me. So that was good. And I am a little surprised, like, because we dated all the way up until the end. Our breakup was pretty tough. It was pretty dramatic. It was our last dating day, so I think it was maybe like a 4-ish hour date we were on. And we spent most of the date, like, essentially breaking up with each other. And it was dramatic. I'm crying, he's crying. He had to leave the pod and like cry in the hallway, come back. He's probably like, shut up. But so it was like a pretty dramatic breakup. So I'm kind of surprised that we like didn't see a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth noting, we did invite Adam to be on the panel. He had a conflict, and we invited him to offer a statement or anything, and we hadn't heard back. But so, trying to keep it balanced in the newsroom.
So did y'all end up dating longer?
We came back. We went on a few dates. We tried to, we would talk a little bit. We tried to make it work, but ultimately I think it was just like a product of the experience that we had together, and outside in the real world, like we didn't really have that connection anymore. But like, it's something you'll always have in common with, anyone on the cast. Like we all have just this shared experience together that we'll always be able to bond over.
For sure. So wanted to, move to Hugo, since he was part of your story. And we barely get to see you in this show. Like, I feel like we see you talking to a couple of people, like, in the background, but we don't like get to hear your voice.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, like could you share like what it was like for you, and kind of what happened between you and Vanessa, if that's okay?
Sure, yeah. Where do I start? So, everything started off going pretty well for me. Of course, definitely different type of experience for dating in itself. So, day by day, you just kind of shorten your list of who you are most compatible with. And then, I think once I kind of got into, I think it was like day 4 of dating, it started to get serious. So that's kind of when people start, breaking up with each other. People start getting heartbroken. Unfortunately for me, it all happened on one day. So went into that day kind of ready for it. And then, just date after date, things didn't work out. So yeah, still enjoyed it. I'm not like saying I regret anything, but definitely a great time for me. Yeah.
Because you had said you were also dating one other person.
It was between Vanessa and Virginia. Yeah, yeah. So she was my number one, and yeah, I mean, she came in and said it was over, and yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing it. It's so vulnerable. People needed to know.
Yeah. I mean, you asked, so I just had to go with it. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's
And this was a year ago.
It's
No
been a
hard
year.
feelings. Hopefully.
No hard feelings at all. No.
I also wanted to bring up, you had mentioned when we talked last week that you have never seen an episode of Love is Blind, like to this day, including the season you were on.
So I had to skim a little bit for just preparation of this. Just in case, right? But yeah, prior to this, I had never watched an episode. And then they were kind of intrigued by that because, they were like, okay, we can see somebody that's fresh that doesn't know what to expect. That is the one thing I do regret is not watching like a complete season. I just went into blind, no pun intended, but yeah, I still had a great time, right? So yeah, no regrets.
Yeah, and how do you feel like not knowing what to expect like impacted your experience?
There's pros and cons. I mean, the pro was just be myself, be genuine, going into it as, you would date anybody in the real world and just give it your all. The con was, of course, everything that comes with television, right? So there's still a story that has to be told. It's still going to be airing on Netflix. So there's things that they want you to somewhat portray a little bit. So I wasn't aware of that. But other than that, yeah, that's really kind of the differences between watching and not. Yeah.
For sure.
And Casandra, thank you again for agreeing to be on the panel. I literally called her like 6 hours ago. So
Hey, I made it.
I think we see you maybe even less on the show than we see Hugo.
Yeah.
So can you just tell us first off, like, what was your experience like in the pods?
So I had a great experience, but mine was a little bit more unique, only because I did leave on my own doing. After first day of pod dating, all the guys were terrible. No, I'm just kidding. They were fine. No. I think I just wasn't, after seeing like some of the girls come out and they were having these really amazing connections, and I was like, oh, maybe I am ready for marriage going into it. I was like, damn, this is real. I don't quite think I'm taking it as serious as I'm seeing some of the other people, and I don't want to take away from anyone else's experience, and I just knew for myself that I had to go home. So I actually left after first day of pod dating. And I had been married before too, and I think that's like honestly a big reason I had been casted, because they kind of loved that storyline and they wanted to see how it went with someone that had been divorced. So I was like, oh, I am spooked by the time I got there. I was like, this is the real deal. Yeah. Yeah.
And how did it feel I mean, I know you left after the first dates.
Yeah.
But how did it feel for the show to come out and see you weren't part of it at all?
I think I had a year of anticipating what was coming, and I felt pretty confident that was going to be the case. I think after watching past seasons and seeing they show more pod interviews and like more storylines, I was expecting at least a little something. So it was, in my personal experience, it was a little hurtful, and I wish I would have seen more. And more, I'm honestly hurt for my friends, like seeing Vanessa. I'm like, she had a whole storyline, and then to not see any of her, get to see her experience that I've been anticipating all year. I think that was mostly what let me down. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But for myself, I'm like, it's fine. Whatever.
And, to open it up for any of you, what do you think the audience misses out on by not getting to see the full cast and only getting this limited picture?
I really think the girl friendships. I can't speak for what's going on in the men's lobby, but really, I think it was so fun, and we're like connecting because you have a lot of downtime to just hang out with one another. And there's like key moments that even since I did leave that I heard about, and I was so excited to see. I've heard about this lime scene 1,000 times, and I was so pumped to see it, and then to not. I was like, oh, well, like, we could have, like, people love the girl stories, so.
Well, girl, what's the lime scene?
I know.
Okay, Vanessa can tell it more because it was her.
Okay, it's actually like it's everybody thinks it's so funny, and I'm like, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But so every time a girl would come back from the pods and they had maybe been broken up with or had broken up with somebody, we would do a breakup shot. So a tequila shot, tequila, lime, salt, the whole thing. So it was me. I think Molly was there. B-Dot was there because this directly involves her. We did our breakup shots, whatever. I'm going in to the next round of pod dating, and I'm like super excited. So I do my shot, I take the lime, I put it down, and I just go in there. I put it down in the bowl of limes, and like B-Dot picks up the lime and does her shot and like bites into it, and there's no juice and it's slimy. It's been in someone's, and it was just her reaction that was like the hilarious part of it. So like talking it through, it's not as funny, but if you would have seen it, like she freaked out. So, and she won't let me forget about it, and I know she is coming for her revenge someday. I just don't know when it's gonna be. But like to piggyback off and to say, like, I feel like we missed a lot of like dynamic relationships even between the people that were shown, like, because everyone is dating multiple people and everybody does have you know, strong connections that are maybe not their strongest, but they do still have connections with other people. Like, for example, I had a really fun time with Daniel. Like, Daniel and I dated for quite some time. I had a fun connection with Scott, who we didn't see much of, and I know Scott had good connections with maybe, I want to say, Lauren and Taylor, and so there's all these other connections happening. So even the people we did see, like, I feel like we didn't get, like, you might not have gotten like a fully rounded view of what their experience was, because there's just so much happening.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because it's not like the bar is that they have to get engaged.
Yeah.
We saw stories this season from people who didn't get engaged. So we're so appreciative of hearing you share more. Hugo, did you have thoughts on what the audience misses out on by not getting to see so many of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Casandra said, just on the men's side of things, I mean, it was just a big fraternity house over there. So, I know Joey's thing was like similar to what they had. It was like the way we would kind of bond was like a Zen swing. So like he'd have us do like these like Zen swings to like kind of like ground us before these dates. It was so that was definitely a good time with him. But other than that, it was like what also Vanessa was alluding to was, you know, diversifying, kind of seeing everybody. I know the biggest thing about, or the biggest hit on this season was lack of diversity. So at least trying to, you know, show that in bits and pieces would have definitely benefited the season. But other than that, I think, yeah, it turned out how it was supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think it was Entertainment Weekly that reported this was like the whitest season of Love is Blind. About a third of the cast members were POC, but on the reunion, it's even a smaller percentage where it's only like half the people who were even brought on. I guess what do you think about viewer complaints about the lack of diversity on this show and kind of how it reflects on the Twin Cities?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure kind of with what storytelling they're trying to do, whether it was like an accurate depiction of what Minnesota dating scene looks like within that age range, or were they trying to just kind of, you know, find the best story regardless of race. So I think that, of course, B-Dot did get up and engaged, and they didn't show that at all. You know, other couples did get engaged, and they didn't show their picture, but I think they should have at least chipped in a little bit with some of that diversity, and couples that actually went pretty far with the story.
I think they really underestimated how important diversity is to the Twin Cities. I feel like maybe if you're not familiar with Minnesota, what we saw is kind of the picture people have in their mind of it, but that's not the picture of Minneapolis and St. Paul and you know, our city areas. So I do think it was a miss, and I think the opportunity was there because we did have diverse cast members and they had stories. I know there was a lot of excitement about Amanda, she's adopted, she's Asian, she was the oldest person who's ever been on the show's history. And we didn't see her at all. And I just think that was like just such a miss not to include some of those stories.
For what it's worth, I did talk on the phone with Amanda today, and we might have coverage later this week with Amanda. We'll see, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Did you have thoughts?
You know, I'm not one to be the one to speak on this. I feel like I just don't have the place. I have this running joke that maybe only white people are dumb enough to apply for the show. But I was like, but they definitely, I think, could have done better and missed a mark a little bit, and especially even utilizing the people that were there and giving them a voice. So I think that could have been definitely shown way more. Yeah.
Another widespread criticism of this season is that some people think it's boring. What do you think? You know, what's your feedback?
Yeah, I mean, that's really...
You're like, from what you saw, you were bored too.
Yeah, that's why I skimmed, right? So, yeah, I mean, my DMs have been a whole bunch of love is bland, love is boring. So, yeah, they really could have done a much better job editing this season with, especially the stories that were actually happening in there. So, their mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, with six pod episodes, and we got
Crazy.
Yeah.
and we got what we got. I think I think they could have done better. I admit I fast forwarded all the pod episodes until I saw my face, and then I would watch it, and then I would fast forward it again. I've seen enough of it on Instagram, TikTok. I'm friends with all the girls, like, and we lived it, so it's like we know what happened. But yeah, those first 6 episodes were hard to get through, really hard, in my opinion.
I just feel like that's notable because y'all were on it. And it's just like, you know, if you don't think it's interesting, that's tough. I guess how do you feel about the screen time that you did get? Like, I guess I'll leave it there.
I guess I can start because I probably got more of it than you do, but barely. I mean, I appreciated it. I appreciate that I got a few words in here and there. I appreciate that I feel like I kind of got to drive a little bit of the plot, like I got to tell Meg what I heard from Madison about Mason, and that's how she found out Madison was, even though that was like a whole thing, and people are like, why is she mad that he's Czech? And I'm like, well, that's not why she's mad. But anyways, and like same with Molly and Lauren, I was like, oh, well, you know, he said he's breaking up with her, but she's been in there for 30 minutes. So like, is that true? Like, whatever. So I feel like the things I got were good, but I wish, there would have just been a little more of my story.
I think for myself, I'm pretty torn. And like, of course, it would have been cool to see myself and everything, and even see like some of my interactions, just to even see how I am on a date, because whoever gets to see that. But I think for me, I almost, get to create my own story, and I don't have to go off of like what Netflix decided to edit of me. So yeah.
That's what I was wondering, is any part of are you happy that you didn't get time on the show? Like maybe it's a good thing?
Yeah, I honestly think so. Like even if I, any TikToks I make, there isn't people in the comments already having like preconceived notions about who I am as a person. I get to kind of create that narrative for myself. So I think there is a piece of me that is, happy.
Yeah, I mean, with some of my dates, I could have been like, appreciate you for not airing those, but you know what I mean? I'm like, at least keep those in the archives. But other than that, no, I wasn't too disappointed with how much airtime I got. Leaving, I left like midway through, so I was pretty sure that I wasn't going to get too much airtime regardless. But yeah, I was happy with the result. Yeah.
And is there anything that you think people misunderstand about the show? Maybe about what actually happens behind the scenes, or, what's something people might be surprised to learn about how the show is made?
I think people think it's very scripted, and it is truly not, at least from my experience and from like even from what I've heard from the girls, like you're really on your own. And they even said, I remember after our first dates, you could tell people were trying to tiptoe around where they work. And they're like, no, like, go ahead and say it. We will edit out anything that we know you don't want to talk about. So go ahead, go for it, and really just be genuinely you. So I know the engaged couples maybe we'll let them speak for themselves, but as far as pods goes, I was like, it's very much unscripted.
I would say I think the like the feelings and the relationships you're making are real. I know like from past seasons of the show and just like seeing discourse and stuff online, like people are like, there's no way like these people are actually in love with each other. Like you're saying I love you to a wall, like there's no way that's real. But it's like once you're really in that situation, it is all very, very real, this connection you're making with this person. Because what you don't see is like you are talking for hours on end every single day. From the minute you wake up till you go to sleep, like you're filming, you're dating, whatever. And you're also like, your only support system is the girls you're with who might potentially be dating the same person you are. And then that person on the other side of the wall. So you get very attached very quickly. So I think that's something a lot of people maybe don't realize. Like these are real feelings that people are having for each other. So I don't know, when Dave says he loves Lauren, like he might actually love Lauren still, so.
Yeah, to like piggyback off what Vanessa was saying, it's that you're stripped away from everything. So as soon as you get down and touch down, like everything from the real world is just taken away from you. So it's just you, 16 guys in the pods, and then your dates. So all you do is date for 2-3 weeks. And then people are, like she said, people are really shocked about, do you actually fall in love in 3 weeks? I'm like, when you're dating every day, same person for like 3-4 hours a day, those conversations start to build up. Because in the real world, you only get to see people maybe on the weekends. There's things that conflict that. But here, it's just that is your main priorities. Date, find your significant other, and then go to your honeymoon. So yeah, it's very real.
Yeah, you're stripped of like all real world everything. You know, you can't call your mom and bounce ideas off of her. You're just having to go off of yourself and what you're talking to these girls too. And you just met these girls. You have no idea how they are. Granted, now I know they're amazing, but in that moment you're like, oh, can I trust this person and tell them how I'm feeling? So I think it gets deep quick. Yeah.
And Casandra, with you leaving after day one of dates, did the show impact your life?
It has. Yeah.
How so?
It has. So I was on and off with someone prior to coming on the show, and he was very much just unserious, and I think I was too. Now, like looking back, and I got contacted, and I was like, I'm gonna go do this, and he's so supportive. Like, yeah, let's go do it. Like, I think this sounds like such a cool experience. So I think too, going on it and then coming home, we both like needed this so bad to get that push to actually like want to be with one another. Because then when I came home, I was like, I screwed up, and he also felt the same. So I think that has really changed a lot for us. I don't even think we'd still be together if it wasn't for the show, because it pushed us to like make that commitment and know that, oh, I don't want to go get married in 6 weeks or whatever it is. So yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's lovely. For Vanessa and Hugo, how did Love is Blind kind of change your approach to dating?
Yeah, and I think I've shared this before, but I just feel like it definitely it made me feel a bit more comfortable having those difficult or like more serious conversations early on in dating. Because like when you get into the pods, like that was like the first question, like, okay, do you want to have kids? Like, what are your political views? Like, what are your religious beliefs? Like, you have to get that out right away. At least for me, that was important. Because I just knew like I wouldn't want to continue with somebody who didn't share like the same beliefs as I did. So I think taking that and bringing it into the real world, I feel like people are definitely, they're like, that's not a first date question, but I think you can definitely have those conversations a lot sooner than, you might think.
And do you have techniques for getting past the Minnesota nice?
No. I mean, at this point, like you've been on a reality television show, so like you're not really afraid to ask or say or do anything. So you're like, I went on Netflix, so here's what I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, right? So it definitely changed the way I approach dating with how quickly you get into really serious conversations. Now, real dating, right? There's not equal amounts of effort, right, on both sides. There's always one kind of giving more than the other sometimes, just because, you know, work, life, and all that. So in the pods, I got to really genuinely see what it looks like to see both sides giving 100% effort. And that is why you see a lot of people just progress much more than they would in the real world. So when you come back here and you're like, okay, let's schedule a date for the weekend, and it just starts falling apart because you've already seen what it looks like when it's 100% from both sides. Yeah, so we'll get through it. Yeah.
A lesson on commitment. I love that.
There you go. Yeah.
And I want to make sure we make a moment for the fashion. The clothes, I feel like, are so coordinated. I'm like, did they dress you guys? Did you have to buy your own clothes?
Yeah, so I am a hairstylist, so I wear black all the time. And they make you send photos of your wardrobe that you're planning on bringing. And I remember because each person gets assigned a casting director or a producer, and he was like, there's no color. He was like, you have to get some sort of pops of color in your wardrobe. So I remember I did have to go shopping, and I spent kind of a band on some clothes going into it, because I was like, well, I'm going to be on TV, I want to look good. And then to only wear my one outfit, I was like, all right, that's fine. But yeah, they definitely do kind of try and direct. They want you to be in bright colors, for sure. That was like a big point for them, like bright colors, pop, which wasn't me, but it's okay, yeah.
I would never make it.
No,
Clearly.
like black all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I spent a ton of money preparing for the show, all the fits, and we didn't get to see any of them, which I'm like, yeah, but it's okay. But like, you know, your clothes, your hair, if you do your skincare, because you're going to film a TV show, so it's like a big deal. So you want to, try and look your best. But it was actually really fun too to like pack for it, even though you only got 2 suitcases. I was stressed. I was like, I cannot fit everything I need in here. And I did. I managed. But like just fun, like knowing like, okay, I kind of have to be a little brighter than I normally would be, or like I have the opportunity to wear something like a little more fun, a little more funky that I might not wear in the real world, because I'm in this like, created environment where I can kind of show out a little bit. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun getting ready for it. But we brought all our own clothes. We dressed ourselves. No wardrobe.
Yeah.
No
That's
makeup.
why also justice for Kaila and her outfit, because she went for it. You know what? She was like, I'm gonna wear my funnest suit, and she did.
We're talking about the half tube top, half
PR.
blazer. Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. She went for it, and I love her for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about clothes for you?
For me, it wasn't that fun, right? So they had the fun, right? For me, going into it, I knew that I was going to be on the show 5 days before my flight. So he's just like, hold off on buying everything. I'm going to let you know. So my producer's like, okay, it's Sunday, Friday, you're on a flight. I was like, okay, I still have work to do. So it was, like they were saying, bright colors, which I never wear, right? And then by that time, I was on a weight loss journey, so none of my clothes fit. So it was just express. Had to run there, and just with her having a problem fitting suit, I couldn't even fit one. I was just throwing clothes. I was like, you know what, this should work. But yeah, it was a stressful 5 days. Yeah.
And did you have any last questions, or should we open it up?
Yeah, one was about like it has come up often in the show. Like people are like, "Oh, like I heard you were out in the bars, so I went to the bars." And I'm like, and people have said like, "Is there only one bar in Minneapolis?" So what is the bar? And are you guys there?
Um,
There's a couple.
there are a few. There are a few. Anywhere?
Shout out Moose. No.
Shout out Moose. We're at the Moose
That's
a
fine.
lot.
Yeah,
in
the Moose
Northeast.
had its moment. Definitely, I feel like the North Loop is definitely the spot that everyone seems to be.
A lot of Cuzzies.
A lot of cousins.
Yeah. I'd say, Cuzzies and the Moose is like
Cuzzies and the Moose.
the place.
The Loop for a moment.
For a second.
Yeah.
Gross.
We always end up at the Otter, but it's just like 3 of us or 4 of us at the Otter. So, yeah.
Singing karaoke.
Well, now I know where all of you will be this
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah. And we will be there. We
Yeah.
will be there.
All right, well, I think we're ready to open it up to questions from the audience. Raise your hand if you have a question. Nicole or Sam are gonna come and pick you guys. I'm gonna have my staff hold the microphone just to make sure we get the perfect quality audio that we need for what we're gonna put on YouTube. And that also means if you say anything weird, they're gonna take the mic away. So keep it classy. All right, who do we have first?
I want to know how the dating starts. Like, are you on a rotation with all 16 people right off the bat?
Yeah. So immediately they kind of send 10 in, both sides, and then it is a rotation. So the first day was 10 minutes for every date. So it's just a speed dating rotation of just in the pods, out of the pods, in the lounge. So that's what it really looks like.
Can I ask 2 questions, please? Please.
Let's hear your first one.
Hugo, have you met Virginia?
I have not met Virginia.
Okay, you can have
Really
another one.
fast. Is there a financial incentive to get all the way to the altar?
Is there? I actually have no idea.
There's definitely an incentive. I don't know if it's financial incentive, but you're there to get married. So I think that's really hopefully the incentive that everybody has, being genuine. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Hi there. Thanks for coming. I am wondering, once the contestants came back to Minneapolis engaged, they were able to get their phones back. Were you in contact with the girls or the guys? I mean, did they confide in you? Were you able to hear some of the hot goss before it got aired?
Yeah, we did have a group chat that got started immediately, but the engaged couples were very still deep in filming. So anyone that was in the pods was very active on this group chat. And I would say the engaged couples, they were a little more quiet because I feel like, they were very much still filming. Kind of. I mean, they were allowed to chat with us, but I think they just were, they were going through their own things. So I think that we did get together with some of them, though. Like, I remember Lauren kind of.
Yeah, after Lauren and Dave ended, we saw Lauren a couple times. But yes, it was very much like, I know they kind of had to stay away from us while they were still, because they're still filming. They still have to get to the altar. Like, all of that still had to happen. And we're just at the Moose, so.
And what are we singing at the Moose?
My go-to song is Wagon Wheel by Darius Rucker. Mads is a big Pink Pony Club girl.
Me and you did some System of a Down.
We did some System of a Down.
Yeah, that was
we
did. Yeah.
Hi. Did you, maybe Hugo, you didn't, but watching the reunion, what were your thoughts?
I think Dave came off a lot better during the reunion than he did during the show. I think we definitely probably got bits and pieces of the conversations. I know just from talking to Mads and Molly, it was a very long day that they filmed that reunion. I think they said they filmed maybe 6 hours worth of conversation. So there's a lot that was probably said that we just we don't know what happened. I think there was a lot more discourse between Meg, Mason, Alex, Madison. I know that went on for a while. More conversation between Dave and Lauren. So I think there's so much that there is to talk about, and we just didn't see all of it.
Either of you thoughts on the reunion?
Yeah, I feel like the girls held it down. I was loving, the screenshot armpits. And so that was great, that my girl Mads. But I was pleasantly surprised with some of the guys just taking accountability. Granted, maybe they got good PR, I don't know, but I think it was good.
All right, Nicole, who do you have?
I think one of the quirks of Minnesota is that nobody loves Minnesota more than Minnesotans, and no one wants to tell you more about Minnesota than Minnesotans. And I'm curious, now that we're kind of in the public light and dealing with some of the blowback, what is something that you wish people knew about the Twin Cities or about being Minnesotan?
Of course, I would say the diversity
Agreed.
in Minneapolis, right? Because that was lacking in the season itself. So I wish they really just kind of shed a lot more light on that, just because I didn't want that being depicted that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think just showing the cities themselves, like a lot of the people we followed or the show followed were from, like the west suburbs, south suburbs. I feel like we didn't really get to see just like how beautiful of a place Minneapolis and St. Paul are, and all the cultures and all the great restaurants and everything great about living in the cities. I think we really lost a lot of that this season.
Yeah, I agree. And I even think like political views could have been a little bit more diverse as well, or even religious views, I think got a little bit more, it felt more narrow. So yeah, that could have been displayed better.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts on the bachelorette party?
So cute.
I feel like they got kind of cheated versus the guys.
I feel like they got cheated versus
I
the
agree.
guys. I am like, why would they do that? The guys got to go to TCO, which like I've been there. Like it's amazing. Like they got to do this whole Vikings thing, and then they said, okay, go to the Mall of America. And dressed like an old woman.
Granted, that was their decision. They
Was
did
it?
that.
What?
Yeah, I think that was Taylor's.
Of course it was.
Taylor loves the bit.
Taylor does love a bit.
I think that was it. But they were saying like, obviously a bachelorette party, you're like drinking, listening to music, and they're like sitting at the Mall of America and they couldn't have music. And so they're just like sitting there quiet. So I think that could have been a little bit more fun. But I do think the old lady outfits was Taylor's idea. Granted, don't quote me on that, but
You don't realize how much silence is actually happening. Like they put all the music and things in like post. So like when you see that, like when you hear that music happening, like you just imagine we're just all sitting in this room and like dead silence. Like it's weird.
All right, who else has a question?
So I wanted to ask, did you guys have because I know after they were shooting, like sometime like early I don't know if it was 2023 or 2024, my bad. But there was a lot of people that were like talking about some of the gossip or drama that was happening with the characters or everybody outside of it. Do you feel like that infringed on your dating life like after? Like did you guys go I don't know if you guys have ever been on the apps, my bad.
No,
But
yeah.
like is it like harder, or was it harder, easier, like was it more interesting dating after the show because cast members' information and stuff got like leaked?
I mean, I don't feel that way. I did like date a little bit after the show. But I feel like most people I dated, like they didn't know about it, or if they did, they didn't say anything about it. But I think now for sure it's a little different. If you try to date now, people kind of recognize you. So whether good or bad, I don't know.
I think for myself, because I started dating someone after more seriously, and the cast list did get leaked prior to the show coming out. So I had people kind of watching my Instagram stories or on my Instagram that I didn't feel comfortable sharing my partner on social media. Well, I didn't want Netflix to also be mad at me because they just didn't want anyone to spoil anything. So I really couldn't share my relationship for this last year. So that kind of did impact my life, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up. Like, I did go on a date where she just kept, pursuing, like, this is my favorite show. I heard they filmed here. So I'm just sitting there like, okay. Like, she didn't want to make it obvious. So I was just like, yeah, I think you know. But yeah, that's really it, really. Yeah.
You were being mined. Wow.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, who else has a question?
How did it feel being on camera? Like, did you realize that the cameras were going? Like, I know they were kind of hidden in the pods, but did you notice them? Did that like change how you acted, or like how did it feel?
You'd actually be surprised how many cameras are there. Like, they have cameras everywhere. They have some staff following you around. And then once you do get into the pods, there's 2 different types where they have just like a standstill camera, and then they have one that guy just kind of follows you around. So yeah, that one is a real weird one. You're just kind of like watching them go back and forth. But yeah, you get comfortable with it after like a couple of dates. So after that, you just, just do your own thing. Yeah.
I remember my first time I was eating a snack in the kitchen, and I'm trying to be secretive and cover my hair because the guy just like instantly whips the camera around towards me, and I'm like, okay, well, we don't need to film this of me sitting here eating a snack. But I feel like you do forget really quick. And in the pods they have, or not in the pods, in the lounge, they're like have cameras behind like plants and random things, so they really make it so you forget about them.
Yeah.
How did your friends and family respond to you wanting to go onto the show before you left?
I mean, obviously my mom, I'm just gonna keep talking about her. She was pumped, but my friends were like, I did have a lot of friends who also wanted me to go on the show. So when I finally told them like, hey, I'm in the process actually of being casted for it, like everybody was super amped. I did end up like telling my boss at work and like some of my coworkers, because obviously like you have to leave work for like a considerable amount of time. And everybody was like really excited, very supportive. So I feel really lucky that I had a lot of good people in my corner who were just gonna support me through this journey. I think my dad was so glad I didn't come back engaged. He was like, no, you're not getting married to someone you just met. But going on the show, everybody was super excited for me.
Yeah. Not to keep bringing it up, but my sister, she was the first person I told. She's a super big fan of the show. She's like, you need to get married. I need my screen time. I need to be at the wedding. I'm like, you got it, whatever for you. But other than that, yeah, everybody was, pretty happy about it. And, sad, of course, I didn't come back engaged. But other than that, yeah, they were pretty happy.
Yeah, my mom is honestly my biggest fan, so she was like, whatever you want to go do, I totally support. Like, I think it's super cool and once in a lifetime kind of way of dating. So she was super down. She's like, go do it. My dad still has no idea what's going on. He's like, what is Love is Blind? I don't even know. Yeah. I showed him my 15 seconds on the couch and we're good. That's it. Yeah.
He's like, good for you, sweetie.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
All right, who's next on this side?
So I know that we saw Taylor and Daniel. They said she thought that Daniel maybe stalked him or saw the Instagram. Did you guys have any experience, like when you were on the show, did you recognize any voices? Maybe when you got out of the pods, was there anybody that you guys maybe recognized or have maybe previously dated or were friends with?
Yeah,
I want you to tell this
Yeah.
story.
So when we got off our flight, all the girls kind of met up at the airport, and me and Madison recognized each other, and we kind of like, I couldn't quite picture it where I had known her, and then she comes up to me at breakfast, and she whispered, she goes, do you remember we matched on Hinge like a year ago? And we were following each other on Instagram. So, and I knew that. I was like, I know we're following each other on Instagram, but how? But we had matched on Hinge the year before. So, yeah. And she's like, if this doesn't work out, let's hit me up after. Yeah. And now we're best friends, so it's great.
Yeah, I think that's it. I knew Yummy before. She taught me a dance class one time, but that's really it. I was honestly shocked that I didn't like recognize any of the guys, because you do feel like the dating scene in Minneapolis is just like this big. Like you for sure know somebody, but I was really surprised I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm shocked I didn't know Vanessa. We both went to Cato at the same time, same major, so I was just like, maybe do I know her? But yeah, I wasn't too familiar.
That's right. Huh.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering, since you guys are obviously local here, did you have any input on the locations that they chose once they were actually filming here in the cities? Or was that all just producers making decisions for you?
Yeah, pretty much producers making decisions. Yeah. Once we actually all got together, like in the airport, like she mentioned, you just kind of, where you're from. So we had a couple of us from like South Dakota, but we had no idea that Minneapolis was like the main location. They just hit us up, would you be interested in this opportunity? And then flew us out. Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My question is, as you see how social media and the world has reacted to Minneapolis and the take of us being very liberal and woke and very pro-woman, what was your experience with that? And what is your experience afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, one of the reasons that like Adam and I connected so well is because we really aligned on things that were important. So like Black Lives Matter, LGBT rights, just not being the worst person in the world. So I think, I feel like it's very interesting. The discourse has been about like, oh, well, the women didn't say yes to these men because of their views. But then also on the other side, it's like, they only showed Minnesota as like very conservative. So I'm like, but which one is it? Because we're saying the women are too liberal and the men are too conservative, which was the case. But I think like it's just the representation that Minnesota is getting from that. I don't love it, but I do like that we got at least a little bit of, the good side of things.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of shocked too, because I guess I'm from Minneapolis, where it's more liberal and, more LGBTQ rights heavy. And I just honestly was shocked watching it back. I was like, I had no idea that that this was how it was going to be portrayed, or like this is how these people felt. Granted, whatever, I don't even have to be involved with them. But I was just honestly surprised with how it was portrayed.
Especially having queer cast members too. Like I thought that was interesting that one, it wasn't really talked about outside of B-Dot, and they made that like a huge part of her story, which I don't think that was fully the case. As like we know, she did end up engaged to somebody else. So like that wasn't even really her storyline. But I think just to have like, we did have queer representation, we did have Black representation, and just for none of that to be shown, it was really unfortunate.
Oh, go ahead over here.
So in past seasons, we kind of saw different approaches with sharing details about appearance, like the Chelsea's thing, and also Taylor from DC not wanting to share her ethnicity. What were your approaches to that, and what did you experience?
Well, unlike Dave, I went in there just kind of not to throw under the bus, but of course, right? We can't share much, right? So it's really just kind of your background, where you're from, and you can't really, and you have to be really vague on some things that can maybe mold your appearance to them. So yeah, it is really just vague conversations surrounding what you look like, your appearance, height, weight, whatever it may be.
I will say for me, because this was actually like very important to me just based on past relationships I've been in, I talked to producers about it too, like I wanted to make it clear that I was Black when I was talking to someone on the other side of the wall, just because in my past that has sometimes, not so much the person I'm dating, but maybe like the person's family that has been an issue with. So I was like, I'm not gonna put myself in the position to get involved with somebody that, maybe their family wouldn't accept me for who I am. So I know it's like not ideal, like that kind of defeats the purpose of the experiment, but I was like very firm, like this is important to me. Like if you want me to find like a real connection, like they have to know this, otherwise I can't go through with it. So I did share that, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I wasn't there long.
Angela had a question. Yeah, can we get a mic to Angela?
I have this question. I have a talk show. Angela Davis, MPR News. I have a talk show coming up on Wednesday, March 19th The topic is, why is dating so difficult in 2025? And so for each of the cast members, I'd love to hear from you. Why is dating so difficult right now, in your opinion?
Yeah, I honestly think with how easy dating apps are and how accessible they are, I think now people are disposable. It's one thing is going wrong or one thing is not going easy. It's easy to just throw that person away and be on to the next one. I'm back on the app, I'm swiping again. So I feel like people have become a little disposable.
Yeah, agreed. Right. So Instagram, biggest dating app out there, right? So you're one post away from somebody reaching out nationwide, right? So you you know what I mean. Like you can honestly reach out to anybody living anywhere, and you start dating immediately then and there. And then alongside that, it is the effort, right? So I did get to see what 100% effort looks like in the pods. Here, it is like I have a whole bunch of options. What makes you stand out? Why should I give you all this effort in the first place? So effort and like she said, accessibility has definitely made it quite difficult for modern dating.
Yeah, I would say the same. And I think it's the intention. Like, again, you go on the show because ultimately at the end of it, like, you know, you might be married to somebody and like that's the goal. So everybody goes into it hopefully with that same objective. And I think in the real world, everyone's in different places in their life. Like maybe you do want to date, but you're not ready to like really get serious about someone. And I just think there's like a lot of miscommunication between people and what they're looking for. And also, like the accessibility of Instagram and Hinge and all the dating apps, like there's always this thought that it's like, okay, well, what if there's somebody else? Like who's the next person? You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people are always just kind of looking for the next and can't focus on what's right there.
Big lessons for being on the show.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone else have a question? Go ahead.
I really enjoy the show, and as a therapist, I watch with a lot of concern about exploitation of people's emotional, exploitation of people's trauma, of people's emotional tenderness, and of attachment. And my question has to do with what kind of screening, if any, around mental health there is, and then what kind of support there is, and what your thoughts are in general about the impact of the show on people's mental health.
Yeah, so we did all have to do a psych eval in the course of the casting. So before you're casted, you meet with a therapist and do a psych evaluation. Once you leave the show, you also do another psych evaluation. They offer to pay for therapy sessions for you if you need it. I believe you are able to talk to a therapist on the show too. That option is available to you. I don't know if many people took it. I know I didn't, but I know we do have the option to talk to somebody, and then we do have some care options post show to kind of help you with things.
Oh, hello. So in the real life dating, lots of times we run into people who maybe aren't the best at getting to know other people. Like when you go on dates, I assume that's, even more in the pods. Is there any help, prompts, questions that the producers give you to, help get to know the other people in the pods?
There is. So you do have your journal that you, of course, write notes on about who you're currently dating just to kind of keep track. But on the back of those journal, right, you do have prompts they may want you to address that specific day. So it definitely can help the conversation flow a little better. Yeah.
It was kind of fun. Each day would be a different theme almost of the type of questions you would ask. So I remember one day it was all focused on physical intimacy, and so I know a lot of people had fun that day. But I also know I've seen some things on the internet of people seeing that sheet of paper and being it's a script, it's scripted, and it's no, those are just the questions that we can ask. We don't have to. But no, they're not
conversations getting dry.
Yeah,
it's just something to refer to.
Yeah,
to keep, because you're in there for hours. So I think it just keeps it flowing. Yeah.
what were the kind of working conditions like as far as like outside of the time you were filming, or like how many hours you were on a day, and like your access to just food and water and
I know that's the big question from all the seasons. They did feed us. We had access to anything we wanted. Like I remember we were all like fiending for some Celsiuses. Like we had to have them, and they would just like cart them in, just Celsius after Celsius. So we had access to all the snacks, all the food. We would do all of our meals. They might be at like odd times because, I mean, you would film all day. There really wasn't a lot of downtime outside of filming. Like you'd film, sometimes we'd have night dating, so you'd be there dating until like 2 o'clock in the morning. You'd go back to the hotel, you'd wake up at 6 a.m. to get ready, and then you'd just do it all over again. So there really was like not a lot of like downtime outside of being on camera.
Yeah, I mean, on the men's side of things, there was a lot of food requests. Just keep bringing them in, right? So like she said, it is from like 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. And then, rinse and repeat the next day. So, yeah.
Yeah, we were fed. There was snacks, there was food. Like the pods and everything, and you could request anything. So I think they improved. I can't speak on past seasons, but they kept us fed.
Yeah. That's a brutal work day, 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. Do you feel like you were compensated fairly for that?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say so. I think we all knew what we were getting into, right? So going in, you're really there to find love, and then the money is just, a cherry on top. So, yeah, I would say everything just kind of worked out. Yeah.
Got it. All right, any other questions? We can go over here.
So since you went through all of the behind-the-scenes logistics, I'm curious how you think a queer season could work logistically, since it would be different.
Ooh, I say why not?
I know, but I have thought about this because I'm like, how do you make that work? Because it's like we're separated by guys and girls. I don't know, like, it would be amazing. I don't know how to, like...
Everyone just gets their one singular pod, and you date everybody.
Oh, yeah. Like
everyone has the one lounge.
You would be there for, like, 3 months.
Yeah.
You would be like, you would never get off the show. No, it would be amazing. They should figure it out logistically.
They should. Maybe just, like, not as big a cast could work. But then, I don't know, dwindles down the options.
Yeah. I don't know. It'd be cool, though.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Or you could just be like what the girls were doing, and we were all just like, we're just gonna date each other.
Yeah.
Just all gonna, like, I think the producer literally came in one day and he was like, you guys just remember, like, you're here to find your partner, you're not here to date each other. Like, he literally had to tell us that on the girls' side, because we were like, okay.
It was like, you can't marry each other. And Molly was like, can't we?
Yeah. I'm just really curious about the timeline. Like the way they edit it, they make it look like some people get engaged on day 2, but you're talking about like the engagement day. So like, what's the pacing? Do they like kind of siphon you into like, at this time you should be here? Or
Yeah, it's the way they edit it is crazy. I actually just answered this question earlier today. So everybody dates for the same amount of time. All the engagements happen on the same day. All the reveals happen on the same day. So I know, like, this season, we saw Joey and Monica get engaged, like, in the 2nd episode. They wouldn't have gotten engaged until the end of those 10 days or whatever. So it is interesting how they clip that together.
I think a theme lately with like reality TV has just been why do these horrible people keep making it on? Not horrible, like they have restraining orders, they have worse in their background. So I'm just wondering what kind of background check, if you know, they did on you. Like, did they talk to your exes and your family and friends, or was it cursory? Do you know anything about what they looked into?
I know they do a full background. They do everything. And I think if you have any big things on your record, obviously you won't get picked. So it's interesting. I guess I don't know. I haven't heard of anyone having a restraining order and making it on. Because there's things that come out all the time, and they're like, well, how could the producers know that existed? prior to casting, because obviously then their name gets out there and people come forward and said, oh, this person did this to me. And sometimes like bad people are the most charismatic. So I'm kind of like, well, that's how they made it. They were really good at speaking. So yeah, because I would say that it felt like an extensive background check.
Yeah, they did run a background check, but I think also the thing you have to like think about is if like this person like has never had like an official charge against them, like it would not show up on any record that you could find. And so like Casandra said, once like that person is in the public, then things start coming out. But yeah, like we had to do a full background check. We had to do social media audits, like all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think you can miss anything.
And to part of her question, do they call references? Like, do they call your mom?
I don't think they don't because they tried to keep you, because you signed an NDA and you're not really supposed to tell anybody. So I think to keep it very private that you're doing the show, they don't reach out to anybody. I mean, they even were like, you're not supposed to tell your boss or something. And I'm like, well, I have to tell my boss. Like, I'm leaving.
I'm going to be gone for a month.
So I think it's always like a little bit of like a hush-hush thing, like you told your boss. But I think, no, they didn't contact anybody I know. Yeah.
Not for me.
My question is, this is a very unique experience that you all went through. What is one lesson that you all have learned throughout this experience?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I would say for me personally is just giving it your all, especially when it comes to finding the love of your life, because, this is going to be the rest of your life. So trying to play hard to get, be toxic, play those games, not worth it. So yeah, I say give it your all, find somebody that also reciprocates that as well back. So it ends up just being a great partnership.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like I'm way more intentional now in everything I do. I find I was like a little bit more whimsical or whatever. Even like I remember my first round of pod dates, I was like going in and asking, what's your death row meal? And I'm like, okay, I'm not getting to know nothing right now. So I was like, okay. So I feel like even coming out and like now, like having a partner, I'm even just way more intentional with him as well.
I think I would just say like you can do, scary things. You can do hard things. You can step out of your comfort zone. And I know, for us as Minnesotans, we love our private lives, and it is really scary to put your life out there in the public, but it has been so rewarding and like just such a really, really fun experience. So just allowing myself to do new things is what I took away from it.
Go ahead.
I actually have a question. I'm wondering if any of the cast members were a surprise to meet in person, and if you pursued dating after.
A surprise? Not real. Okay, like, because when you get out of the pods, when you get your phone back, like the first thing anyone did was go straight to Instagram. So like, so you have an idea of like what people look like, and obviously if you've talked to them, you know what they sound like. I feel like a lot of people are very much who they were. Like who they were in the pods, who they were in the lounge is who I've perceived them to be for the most part.
Yeah. I feel like it's some of the guys I was like, personally I didn't expect them to look like that. I was not expecting the Christmas photo shoot on Daniel's profile. I was like, oh yeah, all right. But yeah, that's probably it for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, everybody I just kind of didn't know what they looked like. So whoever they came out to be is just kind of, whatever came out to be. So yeah, it was pretty fun to meet everybody else.
All right, I think we'll take maybe one or two if anyone else. Okay.
Did you guys feel like someone got a villain edit or like a really good edit? So who was portrayed inaccurately, and give us the names and details.
I would say our girl Mads, she definitely got a little bit of a interesting edit, and they really edited her in the way that they wanted to show like these two characters, and she can very much be a girl's girl, and I think that it wasn't quite shown that she is very much a girl's girl. Yeah,
and I think just like this dual personality thing she had going on between her and Alex and her and Mason, I think she was also having the same types of conversations with both of them, but they just chose to show it in different ways. So yeah, I would say she might have gotten a little bit of a villain edit, in my opinion.
Yeah, I even and Molly, I think too,
Oh, yeah.
in the pods, she looked a little like almost too agreeable. Like she wasn't shown her personality until Buck Hill, and then I'm like, oh no, there's the Molly I know, because they showed it more there, and because she's just so fun, and she truly like she'll die for anybody. She's just so great.
She will tell you anything.
And
like
she will, and she'll just
anything.
stand up for you. She's just such a good person. So I wish they would have showed a little bit more of Molly's personality in her edit.
What about the guys?
Yeah, tell us,
What about the guys?
Interesting. I know how the guys are portrayed, so I'm gonna plead the fifth, right? So, I'm gonna just let you guys figure it out on your own.
You said I'm not taking the fall for it.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, I have to ask, do you think that love should be blind?
It should be. I don't know if it actually is. Of course, we went on an experiment. Of course, personality should outweigh everything, right? The way you interact with somebody should be, the most important, I would say. But of course, the visuals get there and kind of take a toll on some of that. So I would say it should be.
I agree. I think there's a piece of it that is really beautiful, and I wish we could all just go off of personality. I do think there's a physical aspect that needs to be there, which sometimes can get in the way post pods. But I always go back to what Daniel says about his sister and how that's how she dates because she's blind. And I just like want to tear up every time I think about it. I'm like, that's such a beautiful way of thinking about it. And he got to date like his sister, and clearly it worked out. I'm like, they are so great together. So love is kind of blind.
I agree. I mean, I think it should definitely be about the personality first, your values and your intentions going into a relationship. But I do agree, like there does have to be a physical attraction there for like a very strong relationship. And I think we see like, again, between Taylor and Daniel, like he has the eye tattoo. Like there's a very strong attraction there physically. And so I think that's why they work so well together. But I do think a lot of it is because they did fall in love first without seeing each other. So I'm really torn on the matter after going through the experience, like knowing that I did fall for somebody and I had no idea what they looked like. But being in the real world, still feeling like a little bit of physical attraction to that person. So I don't know. Like, I don't know which one it is. Or was I attracted because of the experience? I don't know. I don't know.
All right, well, with that, that is the end of our event. Let's have a round of applause for the panelists. Thank you so much to the audience. Thank you for coming today. I also want to thank my team. Feven and I got to be up here, but it was really a team effort to make this happen. Thank you to Nicole, Sam, and Anne for helping make this happen. Thank you to the events team up there for making our dream come true. And thank you to the members of Minnesota Public Radio for making our work and an event like this possible.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.